10 ways to improve employee wellbeing, reduce turnover, and attract talent. So that's what we're going to be looking at this webinar. Hopefully, we should be kind of finished around 1:45. That gives us time for a few questions and what have you. I'm just checking with Amy. Can you see the slides okay? So good, yeah, excellent. So just very briefly, who are Changing Minds Kent? Well, we're non-profits, and we do a lot of kind of local wellbeing projects. So on the right there, you'll sort of see like some of the kind of community stuff that we get involved in. We actually get grants. We work with schools and various kind of community groups. If you want to find out a little bit more about that, we've got a video on YouTube. There's my colleague Colin explaining to everyone what it is that we do with our community work. On the left-hand side is an example of some of the work we do with businesses. So that's the other month we were up in London, central London, doing some training with quite a large business who got us in to do mental health first aid. So they're the kind of two things that we do, just kind of get a sense of what it is that we do. My personal interest, I'm just finishing a master's in applied positive psychology at University of London. Positive psychology, really very interesting. Psychology for many years was always, interested in, what was wrong with people. It was a deficits analysis. Positive psychology is looking at what's right with people. We're looking at strengths, and we're looking at values. We're looking at resilience. We're looking at what works, and we take that and we kind of look at the evidence of that and see how that can be applied more widely. And we're looking at that not just on an individual level, and that's interesting enough. How does someone report high levels of satisfaction in life and happiness? Even hard to define happiness, but it's also not just the individual, but on an organisational, systemic level. Are there things that we can do from an organisational perspective? How can we have an impact on larger systems in order to improve well-being within a structure? So that's what I'm sort of interested in. And personally, I'm doing some research on the link between well-being of employees, of staff, and turnover intention. So this is the idea of people wanting to leave, and that's particularly of interest at the minute to businesses because of you may have heard of this, the Great Resignation. People are leaving the workplace. So what's driving them leaving? Is there anything that businesses and managers and executives can do about that? Well, that's my, that's what I'm sort of doing research on at the minute and trying to find what's the link. Is there particular aspects of well-being which drive people staying or going? So that's what I'm sort of interested in. I don't have the results yet, but if you're interested, I'll probably be writing the paper in the summer, and that's something that. So I just wanted to give you a sense of my background. And I'm also a mental health first aid instructor, so I've been doing that for many years. And Changing Minds Kent has a number of instructors that kind of do those kind of workshops, and also spend a bit of time doing kind of coaching and training in organisations as well. So just kind of give you a bit of a sense of Changing Minds and what it is that we do. Be really interesting to hear from you guys, maybe just in the chat function rather than putting anyone on the spot. Feel free to maybe just, where in the world are you kind of coming in from and what it is that you do. It's been really interesting in the past. We've had people from Mexico, Japan, like all over the world. So yeah, where are you from and what do you do? So Rebecca's in Gibraltar. I've been to Gibraltar, Rebecca. It's very nice. It's the oddest thing to kind of go from Spain into Gibraltar and suddenly see these English telephone boxes and what have you. It's lovely. So yeah, Germany, India, London. Yes, got some people in London, Angola. Hannah's in a sunny Devon village called beer. I thought for a second then that you were in a Devon village drinking beer in the sunshine. That's where I'd like to be. That sounds nice. Ministry of Education, Wellbeing Development Manager, Michelle Gibson, Wellbeing Manager, National Health Wellbeing Culture Team. Okay, up in Newcastle in Tyne. favourite place of mine. My dad was from Newcastle. Okay, so yeah, it's just interesting to kind of get a sense. I suppose that people kind of come on these webinars for a number of different reasons. Sometimes it's about, that they're kind of interested maybe in the work that we do. Maybe some people are just looking for some ideas, and that's fine. There'll be plenty of ideas today. Other people are coming because they're interested in who else is doing what in this particular kind of area by way of kind of presentations and resource and stuff like that. So if you're interested in collaboration because you're interested in doing this type of work as well, then have a chat with us. We're always interested. We do work with a number of other partners and organizations, and there's such a need out there in business. So it's good to kind of work with other people, especially if you've got specialisms. Okay, let's move on before we run out of time. So how common are common mental health problems? So this is really interesting. This is Public Health England 2019. So it says a recent survey, but I've been using this now for a couple of years. It's not so recent, is it? It's kind of like 3 years old. But this survey revealed that more than 8 in 10 people have experienced early signs of poor mental health, including feeling anxious, stressed, low mood, and trouble sleeping in the last 12 months. And now we have to obviously acknowledge that, sometimes these can be just a natural response to life's challenges. They can become more serious if people don't take action, and many people do wait too long. So it's interesting. I asked this question to like 250 estate agents the other year, and I said to them, how many of you fall into this category, that you've had these symptoms, common mental health symptoms, and no one put their hand up. Partly, I was sort of using a bit of psychology that people are scared to be like the only one putting their hand up, sort of saying. It was really good for sort of establishing really this common experience that people have, that this is what's going on. So I'm just sort of interested of asking this question of you guys. This is completely anonymous. We're just going to use the poll here in Zoom, because I want to ask you the same question. So you should have the little poll pop up on your screen. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. Got a few more people to admit. So yeah, you should have that poll. You don't have to take part of the poll. It is anonymous. But I'm always really interested to sort of see if this research is still generally true. Has it gone up? Has it gone down? I know it's only just a small group of people. So nearly everyone's answered. Let's just give you a couple more seconds if you want to answer that question. Okay, so let's just share the results. So this is interesting, isn't it? 14 out of 18 would say yes. We've got a few people who have abstained, and 4 would say no. So I'm not great at maths. I can't do the fraction, like 14 over 18, or what percentage is that. If you can, then let me know in the chat function. But that's roughly sort of like, to me, looks like 80% of people. But this is a common issue. Okay, good. So we're all on the same page here. That this is not unusual to be having anxiety and low mood and trouble sleeping. That these are common experiences for people. Let's now get on to this. Let's move on to, like, I was going to give you this kind of 10 ideas, 10 ways that we can improve well-being, attract talent, reduce turnover. So first of all, I know it's probably a little bit simple, but just think about if you're in this kind of situation, it's really important that you have a strategy, and that strategy is really important that it starts with staff consultation. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but you need to know what's going on if you're going to have an impact within their system. There's no point in this kind of top down, oh, this is now what we're going to do. You do really need to get a sense of what's going on inside the organization, have conversations with people. And that's something that we have been doing recently with an organization. We actually have some consultation sessions where we have staff come in. We have some interesting conversations. Off the back of that, it's worth kind of developing an annual plan, rather than just like a one-off, policy document. An annual plan, and that annual plan might include a number of things that you're going to be doing through the year. And what that might also include is, number 3, that you take some sort of kind of benchmarks. Like, what's going on? How do you know if you like your plan's any good? Well, we need to know, well, what is the well-being of the staff group? How much sickness, how much turnover do we have? What is it that you're looking to impact? Is it just a particular type of well-being? So there might be a number of kind of like KPIs, key performance indicators you're interested in as a project, what you're looking to impact. So then you introduce the plan, so you might kind of go through the year, you might have various different events. And then at the end of the year, obviously, you're looking at remeasuring what's been the impact. Has it worked? And then that leads back into consultation with staff. What did you like? What didn't you like? What was helpful? What wasn't helpful? Right, let's change the plan up for next year. This next year, we're going to be doing this, this, and this. Because, so it's about kind of pulling this information in. So I know this is probably a bit obvious about having a strategy, but you'd be surprised. Many businesses and organizations don't have a wellbeing strategy. So this is just the bare bones of something for you to use. Now, when I said measure well-being, how do we measure well-being? Well, do you just go around the office asking people, "You right? You okay? How are you today?" Or is there something that's a little bit more scientific? Well, in positive psychology, we've got this a well-being model, which has also been adapted into a measurement tool. So PERMA, this is Martin Seligman, 2011, 5 different areas of well-being. Positive emotion, so this is like feeling good, feeling happy, feeling joy and connection. Engagement, this is engagement with activity, where you might experience something called flow. So positive psychologists are really interested in a state of mind called flow. You will have many people have experienced flow, not everyone, but research shows maybe 80% of people have experienced this flow. This is when you're so engrossed in something, like a film or playing music or playing sports, that you're just totally like focused in on something. That's a flow experience. And research shows more flow experience, more levels of like life satisfaction and contentment and happiness. So like doing things you enjoy. R is for relationship. M is for meaning, feeling that you have meaning and purpose in life. And finally, accomplishment. This is the feeling of wind in your hair, feeling that you're getting somewhere, that, like today is better than yesterday and next year is better than last year. People who feel like they're accomplishing things will report higher levels of life satisfaction. So that was a great. But one of the problems with, so Kern and Butler 2016 developed this into a survey. If you're interested in that, you can find that online. What's really interesting is that a couple of years ago, Donaldson and Donaldson down in South Africa added to the PERMA model and added 4 more areas. And they added mindset, so this kind of feeling of like hope. How do you feel about, how do you see your situation? Physical health, that's a really big one. If you have poor physical health, that does have an impact on your well-being. Your environment, basically, do you work in a basement with no light, or do you work in an area where there's greenery and you can sit out and have your lunch in the sunshine? And finally, financial. And these are 4 more areas. And so what they've done is sort of added to this PERM model, and they've also created a peer-reviewed way of measuring this, so you can actually kind of get a score. And what's really interesting is that they've reworded the questions so that they're workplace orientated. The previous PERMA was just more general in life, and I didn't always feel like it was good, because some of the questions were a little bit personal, whereas this PERMA plus 4 version, a lot better. So there's an idea. There are loads of ways of measuring well-being. This is one that I particularly like because it has this positive psychology base, and also because it's peer-reviewed, and it's got these kind of 9 different areas. So these are the 9 areas. And if you're interested, rather than just being like a paper survey, we've actually got this in digital form. So if you'd like to give it a go yourself, at the end, I'll share a link. It only takes 3-4 minutes. I think there's like 20-something questions, 25 questions, and you go through, it's randomized, and it'll give you a score, and it'll give you an overall score, but it'll also give you a score for each one of these 9 areas, which is really interesting, because what you find with employees is sometimes they have really like high in one area, really low in another, and it's kind of helpful to sort of find out what's going on within a group of people. Okay, let's move on. So I just put this in last minute. It's just an example of some staff consultation we were doing just last week. You sort of see people with some iPads there, and they're actually doing that PERMA +4 survey. So this is some of the kind of work that we're kind of doing with organisations. We're kind of sitting down, we're taking scores, we're having conversations with people to support organisations through that. So I did say about consulting with staff. This is really important part of the process. So just some questions to think about if this is something you're thinking about doing in your place of work. What are the unique challenges in your place of work compared to any other place? What ideas do people have? People will have ideas. You can have conversations with people to find out what they are. Are people interested in becoming wellbeing champions or mental health first aiders? Is it possible to get a team together, like a focus group or a steering group? What's really interesting, I did speak to organisation where they weren't really sure if there was anyone in their organisation. It was a housing association in London, and they put out a bit of a memo across the organisation, and they were inundated with people. They were really surprised how many individuals like, yes, I'd like to be involved in this, but people had working for them who were counsellors they didn't even know. It was really interesting where the executive team thought it was at versus where it was at in reality. People was actually interested in being involved in the project. So one of the reasons why we would do that as well, or why that's a good thing, just some research figure 2017, a feeling of control in one's work environment is associated with a reduction in turnover. So feeling like you've got an input and that you're contributing to something good that's happening keeps people in the organisation, because they sort of feel like it gives them a sense of hope, things are going to improve. So it's a good process to go through, this kind of consultation, getting people in a room, start having conversations. This is research they've done in health and social care. So like, services in the community and stuff like that. This is what they found. Okay, let's move on. Investment with training. So I did mention before about the idea of mental health first aid. Changing Minds provide mental health first aid, but we're not the only people. I would sort of say, it's gold standard. If you're in a large organisation, you already have some trainers that provide mental health first aid training. I would say not all mental health first aid trainers are the same. I obviously am excellent. I don't know about everyone else, but it is really important, because mental health first aid can be a bit slide heavy, and it's really important to have someone who not only understands the kind of content, but maybe has got lots of stories and examples so people kind of understand what is it that we're talking about. When we talk about psychosis, it's really helpful. And so our kind of trainers have got experience not just in delivering mental health first aid, but working in community mental health settings and sort of give examples of what that looks like in reality. So that's helpful. So yeah, mental health first aid training, it's a good start, but if you've done mental health first aid, that's not the end. The question that I'm asked by HR personnel is like, well, what's next? Yeah, we've done mental health first aid. Yeah, well, what's next? But it is a good start. I'll tell you what's next in a minute. Mental health first aid comes in 2-day, 1-day, half-day version. Here on the screen, you can sort of see a number of things that sort of included. It's a great place to start, because staff are giving tools and ideas for helping others. And it's really interesting that people feel more comfortable learning if they're looking at helping someone else. We've kind of got this social norming around the idea of like first aid. People understand, I'm a first aider, I go and help someone else in the organisation. Mental health first aider, people understand what that means. So it's a nice little kind of shortcut into the mental health space for an organisation. So that's what it covers on the screen. Yeah, that's what it's good for. So investment in training, that's really important. But I said, what next? So this is something that we do. This is just peculiar to Changing Minds Kent. I do know there are other organisations that do like similar things. So again, we're not the only ones, but these are some of the things that we're doing. We'll do kind of half-day workshops on on that PERMA model, measuring, improving well-being, building resilience, coping skills, managing stress. I just did a managing stress workshop yesterday, and it's very much around kind of facilitating conversations, giving people models and ideas and ways of kind of interacting with it. Those individuals found that very helpful. We've got ones on communication skills, building well-being in teams and organizations. That's around something called psychological capital. So this is Lutheran's 2007 work. Just interesting idea, you know, if your organization had a bank balance, which was psychological capital, would you be bankrupt? You know, is everyone psychologically bankrupt in your organization? Like, can you build a bank balance? What does that look like? Well, this is work from Lutheran's noughties work in the noughties, where there was good evidence that, you know, short kind of interventions and training actually had an increase in a measurement of psychological capital within an organization. So loads of different kind of workshops and ideas, you know, depends on your organization, you know, but I just want to let you know that there are these things out there. We do some of them, and, you know, we've got other people that we work with that kind of provide these types of workshops, webinars, in person, you know, whatever's kind of appropriate. Okay, finding meaning and celebrating it. So about 15 years ago, researcher named Grant, he was brought in, and he did this bit of research in a university. So this is the story. The universities, American university, they employed mainly students to call people up who used to be at the university and ask them for a donation. Like, do you remember being at the university? Would you like to donate to the scholarship program? The scholarship program allows us to, you know, give people free education, and sounds like a good idea. Really hard though, cold calling people, kind of have some money. So what Grant did is he actually brought people into the call center who had benefited from the scholarship program, and he got the people who were making the telephone calls to have conversations with the individuals who benefited. And what they found is afterwards, those individuals who met an individual who benefited from the scholarship program, a threefold increase in donations, a threefold increase in the number of telephone calls, the amount of time on a telephone. So what they got from that was, if you can connect, it's not just about doing good, because they were already doing good, but can you get people to see the outcome of the good work that they do? Can you connect people to, you know, the person that's actually benefited? If you can do that, that not only increases people's sense of satisfaction and meaning and purpose, but it keeps people in an organization that sort of feels like it's doing good work. So really interesting story. So questions for you would be, you know, what do you do? Why is it important? What value do you create? What difference do you make? And how can you bring all that in so that people can feel it in the workplace? So there's this kind of idea of it's called job crafting. You know, thinking about what people's jobs are and how you can make it so that they can actually see the outcome of their work. The more that you can do that, that's going to increase their sense of well-being through an increased meaning. So think about, you know, how do you celebrate? How do you communicate to that people, not just inside the organization, also outside the organization? So because, you know, if you're looking to attract people, some really interesting research from, I think it's from Monster, you know, the website. People increasingly are looking at, you know, what are the values of the organization that I'm going to work for? Do they align with me, or is this, you know, basically it's just a job? See the point at the bottom there? Are you offering a job, a career, or a calling? You know, if you offer a job, can you offer a career? And if you offer a career, can you make it a calling? You know, something that just they would do even if you didn't pay them. Not that I'm suggesting you don't pay people, but they're just so into like doing this thing because it gives them so much meaning and purpose that they're born to do it. Can you make that happen? You know, in the way that you craft and organize things within the system. So that really interesting idea. Just to give you a sense, project that I'm doing with a small health and social care organisation. We're looking at how do we celebrate meaning and purpose. Well, we're thinking about creating a 15-minute short documentary where we kind of interview people. What difference has these individuals made in your life? And we might interview kind of family and people who've benefited, and pull that together into like kind of like a BBC Three type kind of documentary, and have that out there so people get a sense. And if you saw that documentary, you're much more likely to want to work for that organisation than just one that's got just a normal website. You're sort of saying, because you're kind of connecting with this kind of sense of meaning and purpose. That's a way of attracting the best individuals, attracting talent. It's also making people feeling celebrated, so they're more likely to feel valued in the organisation, so then maybe they're more likely to stay. So just that's one little idea around meaning. Okay, what else do we have? Values-based recruitment. What are your values? What are the values of your employees? Do you recruit people who share your values? So just some interesting research. Again, this is health and social care, because this is why this is my bag really. The research showed that installing a values-based recruitment process is associated with a reduction in staff turnover. When you've got different people with just slightly different value bases, you get conflict, and with conflict, you have a reduction in like you have workplace issues and what have you, which leads to grievances and all this kind of upset. If off the bat you were employing the right people, and you make a thing of these are our values and this is what the kind of person we're after, are you this person? Because if you're not, then we're not interested, because we want the right people here. And that gives it, if you're working for an organization that actually says that we're only interested in these people, then you're going to want to work for that kind of organization. You're setting a standard. So the research sort of showed again that having that type of process in place is associated with a reduction in staff turnover. This is within health and social care. I'd imagine that would be the same in like a wider setting, but that'd be interesting. So yeah, embedding values within your systems and policies. What about this? What's your USP? Like when you're selling something, you say, "Oh, what's your USP?" What's the thing that's unique? Unique selling point. Well, what's your unique selling point for people coming to work for you? What do you offer that no one else offers? And how do you promote that? So people go, "Oh, they're the people I want to work for. They're doing some exciting work. I want to be part of something." So I'll give you an example of how that doesn't work. Was we're working with an estate agency, and you may know the estate agency because their tagline was valuing people, not property. And the executives very much were about that, but the lower managers were not about that. They were about valuing property and not people. Unfortunately, not all of them. Some of them are really nice, but there was a mix in values. You're sort of seeing, and that created a tension within the organisation. Did they really value people more than property? I don't know. Like, it's a good question. They are there to sell property. It's like, what comes first, the person or the property? I don't know. So it's interesting thinking about the values, what it is that you're actually saying. Okay, let's move on. Another little nice idea. This is quite a new one, job embeddedness theory. So just a new concept that offers a potential explanation about why people stay in their jobs. There is a measurement tool to kind of measure job embeddedness. So you can give people a questionnaire. There's 48 questions. And what's really interesting, it's very closely associated with the turnover intention. If people feel embedded, they stay. They don't feel embedded, then they're looking to leave. So rather than asking people, are you thinking of leaving? You'd actually ask people, how embedded are you? Because that's an easier question to ask rather than, are you thinking of leaving us? Please don't leave us. It's more of a, how embedded are you? So this is an idea that actually came out of the army. And the idea is that we're kind of held in our jobs, in our communities by ties. We're connected to people, groups, organizations, places and things. And that these ties that kind of tie us into the organization, they can vary in size and strength. So the idea really for organizations is, how can we make the sacrifice too much? Like, because they've got too much going on. Like this is the, the golden handcuffs, as it were. They've got all their friends working here, that like their life work is somehow associated with the organization. Those individuals aren't going anywhere. Like, how can you make that kind of feeling within the organization, fostering deeper connections, increase the connection to things that matter to people? So yeah, great idea, job embeddedness. It's better to be asking that. I've got there, Clinton 2012. If you're interested in the 48 questions, it looks at 6 different areas, maybe of interest to you, but there it is. Number 9, reducing toxic leadership. Has anyone ever left a job because of their line manager? You know, being a muppet, you know, it's just like very difficult person to get on with. It's a very common experience. I've left jobs because of a line manager, you know, this feeling of toxic leadership. Because of course, you know, managers very much are the gateway for the organization's culture in many instances, that, you know, that's what's going on. And if they're stressed, if they've got the wrong values, then you can have some great people working underneath them. They're going to leave, or they're not going to work very well. So what do you do about that, around toxic leadership? And it's important that we don't go around pointing people, or you're a toxic leader and stuff like that. It's just this awareness that we all have these traits to varying different degrees. So the research sort of shows some good evidence of change when it comes to using something like transformational leadership programs, where we're kind of like looking at people, giving them some ideas to kind of reflect on what's going on, reflect on their values. And this is something that we've developed at Changing Minds Kent. It's a transformational leadership program, like 6 workshops, which is very much a lot of the kind of workshops that you've already seen kind of previously. You might even add in there like one-to-one developmental or leadership coaching. You know, that's happened in organizations where there's some individuals just feel a bit overwhelmed. It's like, well, let's get like a coach in to kind of help them kind of go through a bit of a process. And that's been really helpful for individuals to allow a safe space to kind of take a look at what's going on for them, their workplace, what are the difficulties, what can we do differently, rather than just being stuck in that situation. So yeah, supporting leaders to make sure they're not toxic. Okay, 10. We're nearly there, people. Well done for keeping up. Communicate your strategy. So yeah, I sort of mentioned this a little bit to begin with, but if you've got this kind of wellbeing strategy, you need to communicate it. Some organizations just have like an EAP telephone number on a poster in the staff room, and that's it. That's their wellbeing strategy. If you want to attract people, if you want people to have better well-being, you need to do more than just have a poster on the wall. And what's the benefits of kind of communicating that, you know, by having events, having speakers, you know, organizing things, you know, communicating your strategy? Well, here's an idea. People benefit from perceived support. So perceived support is not actual support. It's just the perception that support will be there if necessary. You know, so people will say, I work for an organization that has this, and this in place. I've never used them, but it's nice to know that they're there. And I know that my colleague has actually benefited from that one. So there's a sense of kind of security within the organization, because you're communicating what's available and what's going on, and how that's benefiting people. And that leads to people feeling valued. When people are valued, they're more likely to stay around. Oh, this is some of the research I think I mentioned earlier. I forgot this was on here. So not only do you communicate your strategy internally, but what about externally? When you do a job advert, do you let them know about the stuff that you're doing when it comes to well-being? So this is the research I was mentioning. This is from last year, Monster UK. This is the job site where people kind of put their CVs and, you know, search for individuals. Shows that not only do 57% of candidates want to know about a company's values before applying for a specific role. So they're going to be looking at your website. They want to get a feel. They want to get a sense of what's going on, because they don't want to be walking into a toxic environment. Makes sense. 29% of those candidates want to know about it before they even consider applying. So they won't even go to a job interview if they don't think it's right. So how do you communicate that to them in your kind of job adverts and stuff like that? And again, this was really interesting. Another bit of research. 21.7% ranked care as the most important factor when like looking at new job and work environments. It's actually slightly higher than what they pay. That's how important it is. You know, like how when you look at jobs and you're like, oh, how much is that going to pay? Well, that's important. But what's as important is what's it actually going to be like there? Do these people care? Am I going to be looked after? Am I going to do some good work there? Or am I just going to be used? Like how can you communicate your values into the outside of the organization? So that's really important. Here's a freebie because I said 10, but now look, it's 11. This is something that Changing Minds do just as part of like a strategy, which some organizations have found helpful. Again, this is something that we do. This is something maybe you can organize for yourself, but we do something called a Wellbeing Pod. So we'll pitch up at a place of work. You know, we might use the gazebo, or we might do it indoor. You see the picture there at the bottom. That was last week. I can't remember what organisation that was, but it's an organisation in Kent. I think it might have been a housing association. And you know, we have coaches, 2 or 3 coaches. They engage with staff. They do like a well-being survey. Maybe they take blood pressure. They talk about stress. It's very informal. And you know, if you've got a place of work where you've got lots of people, this is a great kind of idea, kind of a way of communicating that you care. It's a way of measuring well-being, because maybe you can get everyone to do a well-being survey. People naturally start with when the coaches start asking questions about, you know, how do you look after yourself? People start developing well-being plans just informally. Oh yeah, I do need to do a bit more of that. I've stopped going to the gym. I need to eat a bit better, and I need to spend more time with my friends, and whatever it is that they need to do. Because workplaces, we can't be solely responsible for people's well-being. We've got to get people to take responsibility for themselves. So we want to foster an environment where people are looking after each other and they're looking after themselves. So Wellbeing Pod is just an idea that we've been rolling out for the last year or so. Bit of interest in various different organisations and in the NHS for that. I'm not even going to talk about that because we don't have time. What I will talk about is this. If you've enjoyed this, if this has been of interest to you, we do webinars every month. Next month, 5 ways to use positive psychology to measure improved well-being. Few overlaps with today, because we're going to be looking at, again, this positive workplace function scale. But we're going to be looking at the role of appreciative inquiry and the 5D model. If you don't know what that is, come along. Appreciative inquiry is when you're looking at organizations, rather than looking at everything that's wrong, what's going right that we can build on? Because you know what tends to happen in organizations when things are going wrong, everyone's always focusing on the negative. And yeah, there are negatives, but there's not just negatives, there are strengths there as well. How can we build on them? What are they? So appreciative inquiry is that as a process, it's a philosophy that's been used to help turn around schools as an approach. Number 3, the importance of aligning employee and organization values and how to do that. That'll be interesting. Coaching change models to create new futures and new realities. So we're going to be looking at some frameworks. So if you're kind of working within like a leadership team, or you know, with others, what kind of framework could you use to make some of these things happen? So we're going to be looking at some models, some organizational psychology models that have been used to kind of create change. And what are the process? What things do you need to do? What are the steps? What do you need to do first? And what have you? So we're going to be looking at a couple of models there, which I think are good. And then finally, how to use training to start new conversations and create peer support networks where people are looking after each other. So we're going to just a little bit more of an overview of some of the training that is out there and some of the training that we do. If you're interested, there's the link. I think that Amy might stick that link on. So if you're interested in registering for that, come along next month. Just a few other little things. If you're interested in just kind of finding out a little bit more about mental health first aid, we've got some open courses in June and July. There's a youth version. So that's quite big in schools, obviously, and with youth organisations that we're running. That's a half day in May. These are all being delivered online. So plenty of links there for kind of booking those things. And we've also got a link there to subscribe to our newsletter. There's a link to our previous newsletter in April. I did a webinar on stress and with some research and some resources. on stress. So if you're interested in that, you should have the link to the previous webinar on YouTube with all the resources and stuff like that. So you just click on that. What else have we got? Oh, there we go. Cup of tea and a chat. So if you want to come along, I say come along, we could meet online, or we could meet if you do live in Kent, or if you're local, we can go for a coffee or tea. If you're interested in doing some work with us because you like this type of thing and you sort of feel like our values might align, and yeah, come and have a chat with us. We have, we do work with and bring other kind of coaches and trainers on. If you're an organization and you want to find out a little bit more about some of the training or some of the kind of group coaching that we can do with an organization, or some of the consultation work, or maybe you're interested in some of the measurement tools. I think what we might do, so we'll end there. Let me just stop sharing. So I think what we might do, for those of you that are interested, we've got this link here, wellatwork.score app. I mentioned the Perma Plus 4. If you'd like to see what that looks like, we can actually do it yourself. And you just put in whatever score you want. It does take your email address at the beginning because it'll email you your results. But just experience what it's like to kind of measure your well-being and get the feedback. So have a link there. Feel free to kind of take a look at that. And because that's something that we're using in organizations to benchmark the training and the work that we're doing. So if you're interested in making use of that app, then let us know. So I think we're at the end. It's not bad. 10 minutes to spare. Any questions? Is there anything that I've sort of mentioned? Is there anything that you've liked? Feel free to unmute yourself now and speak if you wish, or you can use the chat function if you're feeling a bit shy. That's fine. Let's just say I'm just scrolling through just in case there's any questions from people. But do you have any questions? Do you have any comments? Maybe the chat function. I'll tell you what is actually helpful to me. So I kind of like 10 things. What one idea you're going to take away from the webinar? Use the chat function. Is there one thing you're like, oh, I like that? Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, I know I was talking very quickly and I was spitting out lots of ideas, but hopefully, there was like one idea in there that you were like the sound of that. It's helpful to me because I might think that these 10 are great, but there might be 3 in there that nobody thinks are any good. And if I do this webinar again, I'll replace them with something else. So Brad thinks the Wellbeing Hub sounds good. Yeah, Brad, that's worked really kind of quite well with the organisation because it's informal and it starts conversations with people. So that's working really kind of quite well. So Kim's talking about having wellbeing strategy. Yeah, very important. Starting with the consultation. Yes, very important. There's going to be good ideas out there in your organisation. You need to tap into that. And then you're more likely to kind of create a bit of a groundswell as well. When you start doing things, people will go, yeah, oh yeah, I had that idea. Or do you know what I mean? So people get involved more. And then it's more likely to be successful. There's nothing worse than a wellbeing strategy that's been devised by the HR director and CEO and then just put on people. People go, what is, oh, this is another thing I've got to do, is it? We want to make people sort of feel like this is something a little bit different to that. Barney says, interested in job embeddedness. I can't say it. Put my teeth back in. Job embeddedness theory. Try saying that quickly. So they'll be looking into that. Yeah, that's interesting. So you've got the hopefully you can find the with the reference there. You just throw that in. There is a survey that you can use. Maybe you can make that part of your kind of strategy. Sort of feel how embedded people are. It'd be interesting to see as that changes. Is there a change in turnover? If job embeddedness goes up, does turnover go down? That's what the evidence seems to be suggesting will be happening. Samantha says, really like to check in on leadership skills and not to become toxic. Yeah, reflecting on values, supporting the leaders. Yes, Samantha, that's definitely worth thinking about and doing some work in that area. what's Amy put on there in the chat? Recording from today, resource will be publishing in this month's newsletter in the next couple of weeks. So if you've registered with us for Eventbrite, what Amy does is she just sticks you on our newsletter. We only put one out a month. If it's annoying you, just there's an unsubscribe button. So feel free to unsubscribe if it's just getting on your nerves. But hopefully, like every month, you'd at least get this newsletter. If you missed the webinar, you'll see the link on there. You'll sort of see some of the resources, and sometimes we sort of share some of the ideas and resources that we use in our work, in our webinars and in our training. So we'll sort of kind of have them in the thing as well. So if anyone wants, would like a conversation, have you got any questions, like personally, like, you just like to chat to us on a one-to-one basis, then Amy, can you put my email address in the chat function? Yeah, give me an email and we can just, have a Zoom next week or something like that if you're interested. There's no obligation. It's just good to kind of make connections. Feel free to ask questions. There's so much resources and ideas out there. I'm not precious about it. There's, I could probably do 100 webinars like this with 100 different ideas. So feel free, if you want to know about anything in a little bit more detail, then give us an email. It'd be nice to kind of make a little link. That's what we're all about at Changing Minds Ken. So thank you for your time. Thank you for staying. Hopefully that's kind of delivered some value for you. May see you at another webinar, may get an email from you. We can have a Zoom cup of tea or a coffee, and we'll speak soon. Have a good afternoon. Sun shining. Don't forget, take some personal time. Brad's happy about the rest of the sunshine. Looks like you're already outside, Brad. So make sure you take some time for yourself at lunchtime. So, have your lunch. You need to be a good example. If you're interested in well-being, you've got to be a good example to other people. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good afternoon. Have a good weekend. Take care. See you later.